a few big takeaways from that rally. Firstly, the date. That was very contentious. It did have to be moved because it coincided with Juneteenth. Can you explain the significance?
Yeah, look, there was a lot of speculation that that was something that was designed to be deliberately offensive to the Black Lives Matters protesters, and there was a lot of tension at the rally between Black Lives Matters protesters on the ground and Trump supporters, to the point where some people on both sides were openly carrying military-style assault weapons, openly carrying pistols. Police very concerned to make sure that they were separated into separate security zones, but as it turned out, nowhere near the numbers they were expecting for this event.
That is the real takeaway for this. This has been a real power push. This has been something that President Donald Trump has used quite consistently, is the size of his rallies, to say that he has that grassroots support. So when you see something like this, when we're not that far away from the election in November, what do you think it means for Trump's general popularity?
Well, you can look at it through two different lenses. From a Trump supporter lens, there are more than 6,000 people who were willing to risk a public health issue to come out and support him and to back him. It wasn't an empty stadium. There were there were thousands of people there, but clearly I think it fell short of the expectations. There's been some discussion around whether it was interfered with by a deliberate campaign to book tickets and then not show up. But clearly it fell far short. I mean, they had to cancel events that were planned, speeches by the President and Mike Pence in the overflow area. There were only a couple of hundred people in the overflow area. They really didn't get the numbers they wanted. Now that, if you're a Trump critic, is a sign that his support is waning, that people are alert to the President's deficiencies, the problematic way that he's handled the many crises the US has been through this year, and a sign that his decline is imminent.
And that is the flip side of it, because there is reporting that there was a concerted campaign to have people reserve tickets even though they weren't going to be there. Even some implications that there could be South Korean K-pop involved in a TikTok campaign. It's all very 2020, isn't it?
It is. People using a dance app to sort of coordinate a political campaign to take down a Trump rally. That's been denied by Trump's campaign manager, his 2020 campaign manager, who says they were aware of that. They saw it happening and they decided not to let large slabs of tickets be booked out by people behind that campaign. But I think that, the key thing here is what the president had to say and how he looked after this event. That image, the video of him getting off Marine One, walking back across the lawn of the White House, tie undone around his neck, carrying the Make America Great Again hat, looking entirely dejected. He won't be happy with the way this rally turned out, and he'll be looking for someone to punish for the fact that it didn't meet the expectations that were set.
And just one of the really newsworthy things that came out of it was when he said that he'd asked his own advisors to make sure that they reduced the number of coronavirus tests so they weren't dealing with the case numbers being reported that were previously being reported. That's hugely significant for Americans having confidence in how the pandemic's been handled.
Pretty extraordinary, really. And the president's team now trying to suggest that that was just the president making a joke, as they've done before when he said some of these outrageous things. One thing that's never in doubt, the president says what is on his mind in these speeches, rambling, incoherent, but certainly authentic. I don't think there's any doubt that he meant what he said, that he'd asked them to slow down the testing to put off bad news. It's sort of a head in the sand approach to this whole crisis. And I think that'd be very concerning for the people around him who are charged with trying to get the numbers down and try and flatten that curve in the United States.
Now, the headlines have been all on the president because of this rally, but what do you make of what the Democrat campaign has been at the moment? Do you think Joe Biden's stepping up?
Look, he's certainly getting out more, which is important to see. There was that period where he was trapped in the box in his lounge room and doing Zoom calls, and that was really all there was to the campaign. I think the fact that he's getting out more shows a bit more energy in his campaign. It's a little bit revitalised. The biggest question for the Democrats is how they get that turnout, how they make sure that they can maximise their numbers on the day. So I think they really need to be thinking about the impact that coronavirus and concerns about coronavirus will have on their ground game, on their logistics, on the elderly, on vulnerable people who might not want to come out and vote for them. But yeah, it's clearly a step up for the Biden campaign, being more active, being more responsive.
And just finally, it seems like the protests, the rioting has died off in the United States, but the Black Lives Matter movement certainly hasn't. Where do you see this progressing to from here?
Well, the energy of the Black Lives Matter protests, if it can be sustained, and you would expect it will be in some form or another, will certainly drive enormous turnout in the election, you would expect. But what it needs to translate into now, I think, is some sort of practical action. So I think we're looking to see whether the House and House Democrats can start to get some sort of practical agenda through the Congress that capitalises on this enormous support, whether it translates into funding support for their side of politics. That'll be the sign as to how sustained this movement is, or whether it's just one of those periodic flare-ups we see in US politics.
That is the question. It's certainly a lot more volatile than Australian politics has proven to be, but we have to leave it there. James Brown, thank you for your time.